The lesson is devoted to the RS-232 interface, which is commonly called the COM port. We will understand how it is presented in Linux, what its interface is, learn how to configure it, and also learn that writing a program for communicating via COM port in Linux is not difficult. Talking about COM port communication on Linux, we should begin by noticing that each COM port in the operating system has a teletype or TTY device file. It is located in the dev directory and has the name dev ttys and number. If we have a look at my directory, we will see that I have lots of such files. But in fact, there is one physical COM port in my computer. Let's try to find him. This can be done using the dmesg command, which displays all log messages from the moment the system start. If we type dmesg grep ttys, then we will see that in reality I have only one ttys4 file associated with a specific COM port, which has some IO range, interrupt number, and which is now configured for an exchange rate of 150,200 bits per second, or baud. In order to configure my default COM port in Linux, we can use the minicom program. We need to run it from the super user. Also, we can add the current user to the dialout group. Try to run command sudo minicom-s. The S switch indicates the setup. Here we see there are serial port parameters. It is important to register the file correctly. You need to specify the file which is connected to the physical COM port in your system. The second important point is the configuration of the exchange parameters. Key. The fact is that the correct data exchange via a serial connection is possible only when both sides have the same set of parameters. In this window, you can change the set of these parameters. We see that we have a data size of 8 bits, no parity, and one stop bit. It is here that you can see and configure everything as required or as your device requires. Save the default configuration. Later we will communicate with using the terminal command to check manually how this works. After that we will write a small program that will send data to the COM port. To exit from minicom, use Ctrl+X. In order to check how the COM port works, you can use the miniterm program. I created a virtual machine with the regular Linux. It indicated that it had one COM port. This is COM1. The default lines for processing interrupt requests were assigned. I associated this COM port with a file on my host machine. From this file we will read the data written to the port. So, we see that on the left side of the screen we have a login to the virtual machine. Let's check with minicom-s how communications are configured. Check that dev ttys0 has the correct physical port. Yes, that's it. Now we can call the command sudo miniterm. It says that there are the following ports available, and asks to specify which port to work through. Next, I have got the terminal connected to the COM port, where I can type text. As I type commands, I see an echo in my file on the right. Please note that I write in the left window, and on the screen we see the inscription in the right. In the left window is the virtual machine on which the port is configured. In the right, the log that we see in the file associated with this COM port on the host machine. The application will look very simple, because all the actions that we do with the COM port in Linux are actions with files using the same file operations.
Потребуется unistd для того, чтобы получить доступ к функциям open, write, read и fcntl для того, чтобы
we need the stdio and unistd files to access the open, read, write, fcntlh functions in order to be able to use file flags.
закрываем файловый дескриптор. Это будет у нас порт, например, равен open. Имя файла нам известно, это dev ttils0. И флаги мы собираем.
Open the file descriptor, COM port, name, and flags from the COM port.
Флаг по read, write. Так, проверим, что файловый дескриптор у нас открылся. То есть, если порт меньше или равен нулю, это какая-то ошибка. Оповестим об этом пользователя.
We'll check that the file descriptor has opened, that is, if the port is less than or equal to 0, that is.
И вернем управление. Вот, в противном случае можно писать в этот
Otherwise, you can write to this file descriptor, write accepts a file descriptor, a pointer to a buffer, size.
char message. Hello world. Значит, write принимает файловый дескриптор, указатель на буфер и размер. Так, дальше мы просто закрываем файловый дескриптор.
Close the file descriptor and return control. The application is ready.
Давайте запустить.
Now let's try to run what we have. So, compile and run. An error occurred while
Writer. Main. Так, готово. Порт writer. Опс. Мы имеем ошибку.
an error
Но
occurred
нам
while
нужно
starting the
понять причину,
application,
потому
but
что
it was caused by obvious reasons, because the user had to have the dial-out group turned on, or we need to run the application from the superuser. Let's do it, and immediately we see that the entry hello world appeared in our window. You can repeat and see that everything works correctly.
пароль. И вот мы видим в правом окошке у нас получилось Hello World.
In exactly the same way, you can read from the COM port, but use not the write function, but the read function.
Вот точно таким же образом можно